Welcome back to another episode of Smooth Brain EDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. We're super excited to bring you all some Halloween-themed gameplay today. Our players decided to each build a deck around a spooky tribe, so let's see what they brought to the table. First up is Chandler on Zurzoth, Chaos Rider. This mono-red Devil Tribal deck hopes to make opponents draw cards to trigger Zurzoth's ability to create more devils and pressure opponents' life totals. His opening hand has 2 mountains, Mikokoro, Center of the Sea, Lightning Bolt, Tormenting Voice, Arcane Signet, and Torbrand, Thane of Red Fell. Next up is Shelby on Grist, the Hunger Tide. This is a skeleton tribal deck, hoping to instill shock and terror to the table through an overwhelming army of undead. He keeps a hand of Swamp, Exotic Orchard, Llanowar Wastes, Overgrown Tomb, Tenacious Dead, Drudge Skeletons, and Skithrix, the Blight Dragon. Third is Dustin on Tovolar, Dire Overlord. He brought Werewolf Tribal, planning to use his commander's card advantage engine to land powerful threat after powerful threat. He starts the game with a Mountain, Rootbound Crag, Gruul Turf, Commander's Plate, Full Moon's Rise, Breath of Fury, and Mondrian Shaman. Last up is Cameron on Wilhelt, the Rock Cleaver. His game plan is to create a massive army of undead to crush his enemies, using his commander to help grow his army and sacrifice them to draw cards. He keeps Ice Tunnel, Scalding Tarn, Command Tower, Wayfarer's Bauble, Felwar Stone, Carrion Feeder, and Eternal Skylord. This is shaping up to be a bone-chilling game. Let us know in the comments who you're rooting for, and while you're down there, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss our weekly uploads. Now, on to the game.
Alright everyone, Chandler starts us off with a mountain and passes. Shelby plays a swamp into Tenacious Dead and also passes. Dustin plays mountain into Commander's Plate and ships the turn to Cameron. Cameron plays Command Tower into Wayfarer's Bauble, making Chandler the only one without a turn 1 play. Speaking of, it's his turn again. He plays a mountain, taps for 2, and casts Arcane Signet, then passes to Shelby. Shelby plays Llanowar Wastes, taps for 2, and casts Drudge Skeletons. He moves to combat and swings 1 at Dustin, and then passes to Dustin. Dustin will play Rootbound Crag as his land for turn, then tap for 2 and cast Full Moon's Rise. He'll pass to Cameron, who plays a Murkwater Pathway as land for turn, then taps for 2 to cast Felwar Stone, then taps it to cast a Carrion Feeder. After this, he'll pass to Chandler. But Chandler stops him on his end step and casts Lightning Bolt, targeting the feeder. Now on his turn, Chandler will play an Ancient Tomb as land for turn, tap for 2, taking 2 damage to cast a Lightning Greaves. He'll then tap for 3 more to cast his commander Zurzoth, and free equip the Greaves to him. He'll then move to combat and swing for 2 commander at Cameron. On the attack trigger, they'll both draw a card and randomly discard, and Chandler will make a 1/1 Devil. They roll for each other's discard, and Cameron has to discard his Ice Tunnel. And Cameron rolls for Chandler to discard his Tormenting Voice. And after all this, Chandler passes the turn to Shelby. Shelby will then play his Exotic Orchard, and then tap for 3 to cast Grist. He'll uptick Grist to mill his Damnation and make a 1/1 Bug. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. Grist isn't skeleton tribal, but if you take a look at any official artwork of Grist, she is inhabiting some sort of skeleton, and Grist is also always depicted as some sort of insect or a hive mind of insects, and insects have exoskeletons. Sorry, that was bad. Shelby then swings for 2 at Cameron and then just passes turn. Dustin will play Gruul Turf, bouncing his mountain back to his hand, but not before tapping it for a red. He'll then also tap for a green and cast Ulvenwald Captive. He'll then pass the turn to Cameron. And Cameron will play a Scalding Tarn, then just pass the turn to Chandler. And Chandler will play Mikokoro, Center of the Sea, as land for turn, then tap for 3, and cast Ashnod's Altar. He will then tap his Ancient Tomb, taking 2, and activate Mikokoro to make everyone draw a card, and he will get 3 more Devils. Chandler will then sacrifice 1 to Ashnod's Altar to kill Shelby's Drudge Skeletons, and then using that 2 floating mana, he'll cast a Liquimetal Torque. And after this, he'll pass the turn. Now on Shelby's turn, he'll play a Swamp. Then tap for 4 mana to cast a Death Priest of Miracle. After this, he'll uptick Grist again, make a 1/1, and mill Reassembling Skeleton. He'll then move to combat, and swing 1 of his 1/1s at Cameron, who has no other choice but to take it. And after that, he'll pass the turn to Dustin, who will start his turn off by replaying his Mountain, then tap for 3 and cast Tovolar. And it'll become daytime when he enters. And unfortunately, Dustin's Captive has Defenders, so he can't swing at Cameron to get a free card. And so Dustin will pass the turn, but Cameron will stop him on his end step. He'll crack his Wayfarer's Bauble and fetch with his Scalding Tarn at the same time. He'll find a tapped Sunken Hollow and an island to the battlefield. Now on his turn, Cameron will play a Snow Swamp, tap for 6, and cast a Rooftop Storm. Everyone at the table is a little bit scared. Cameron will then follow it up with a Noxious Ghoul to give all non-zombies -1/-1. When Chandler's 1/1s die, he points all 3 damage at Cameron's Noxious Ghoul. After this, Cameron will free cast his Eternal Skylord and amass 2. He'll then free cast his commander, and then move to his end step, sacrifice his amassed zombie, draw a card, and make a 2/2 Decayed zombie. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and Chandler starts his turn off by making everybody draw a card with Miko Koro, and he'll make 3 devils with this. He'll then tap for 4 and cast Torbrand, Thane of Redfell. He then plays Mountain as land for turn, and then just passes to Shelby, wanting to hold up 3 lightning bolts. And Shelby will start his turn off with a basic swamp. And after a little bit of thinking, Shelby decides that letting Chandler have 3 lightning bolts every turn is not a good idea, so he downticks Grist, sacrificing his Tenacious Dead to destroy Torbrand. Tenacious Dead will trigger when it dies, and Chandler decides it's time to respond. He'll sacrifice one of his devils to deal 3 damage to Cameron's commander to kill it, then do the same to Shelby's Grist, who goes back to the Bone Zone, and considers killing Dustin's Tovolar, but decides to ultimately go with Cameron's Skylord and telling Dustin he owes him one. Shelby will then pay 2 to return his Tenacious Dead, and Torbrand will die. After this, he'll pay 2 more mana to put Reassembling Skeleton back to the battlefield tapped, and then move to his end step and pay 1 mana because a creature died to make a 1/1 skeleton token. Now on Dustin's turn, it'll turn from day to night because Shelby only activated abilities during his turn. And after transforming Tovolar, Dustin will play a Reliquary Tower as land per turn. And then after this, he'll completely tap out and cast a Tovolar's Huntmaster, but since it's night, it will enter as a pack leader, and he'll make 2 2/2 wolves. After this, he'll move to combat and swing for 5 damage at Shelby. Since the Full Moon's Rise also gives a trample, Shelby decides to just take the full 5, and Dustin will draw a card. And after this, Dustin will pass the turn to Cameron, who starts his turn off with a Castle Vantress, and then taps for 3 to cast a Wand of Orcus. He'll then pay to equip it to his Decayed zombie. After this, he'll cast a Reanimate, targeting his Noxious Ghoul. He'll lose 5 life, and when it enters, all non-zombies get -1/-1 till end of turn. After this, he'll move to combat and swing his 2/2 Decayed zombie at Chandler. In order to prevent Cameron from getting too far ahead, Chandler decides to block with Zurzoth. With nothing else left to do, Cameron passes the turn to Chandler, and it'll become daytime. And Chandler decides to just go ahead and recast Zurzoth and equip him with the boots again. Chandler will just pass the turn after that. Now back on Shelby's turn, he'll play another swamp. After this, he'll tap for 4 and cast a Paragon of Open Graves. He'll then move to combat and swing his 3/3 Reassembling Skeleton at Dustin. Shelby also bluffs some sort of instant speed interaction, and Dustin buys it and takes the 3 damage. And after this, Shelby will just pass the turn to Dustin, and at the beginning of Dustin's upkeep, Tovolar's ability triggers, and he changes it from day to night. He'll then play a Timber Gorge as land for turn, and then pay the 3 mana to equip Tovolar with Commander's Plate. He'll then move to combat and swing an 8/7 Tovolar at Shelby, an 8/7 Pack Leader at Cameron, and 2 2/2s at Chandler. Dustin will make 2 more 2/2 wolves, and nobody really feels like blocking, so he's able to draw 4 cards when they connect. And then after all of this, he'll just pass the turn to Cameron. And Cameron, now trying to find some way to shrink Dustin's board, will cast the Reflections of Litjara. And Dustin gets a bit worried that Rooftop Storm and the Noxious Ghoul could potentially wipe his board, so he counters it with Tybalt's Trickery. And the board is actually very excited to see what Cameron flips into. He rolls to see how much he mills, and it ends up to be a 3. So he mills his cards and reveals... Yep, it's a Damnation. And he gladly casts it. But before it resolves, Chandler responds by activating Miko Koro to make 2 1/1 devils so that he can get 2 damage off of this. And when the Damnation resolves, Chandler will point 1 damage at Cameron and 1 damage at Dustin. Shelby will also pay 2 mana to return his Tenacious Dead to the battlefield. Cameron then asks Shelby if he plays his commander, will Shelby just kill it with Grist the next turn? And Shelby answers probably, so Cameron just passes. And since Cameron casts his Reflection and the Damnation, it turns to daytime at the beginning of Chandler's turn. And Chandler will start his turn off with a basic mountain. He'll then cast a Fiery Emancipation and an Impact Tremors. This definitely scares the table, but thankfully he doesn't follow it up with anything else. And so the turn is passed to Shelby. And Shelby will cast an Underworld Sentinel, swing for 1 at Dustin, and then play a Verdant Catacombs and pass the turn. And Dustin will play a Path of Ancestry tapped as land for turn. He'll then use his Gruul Turf to cast an Arcane Signet, then tap for 3 to cast Taurian Mauler, and then after that, he'll cast a Lightning Greaves. The turn is then passed to Cameron, who starts off with a Verdant Catacombs. He'll fetch with it to find another swamp to the battlefield. After this, he'll tap for 6 mana and cast a Zombie Apocalypse, returning all zombies from his graveyard to the battlefield tapped, and then destroying all humans. Guess what? Torian Mauler is a human. And Shelby decides to respond by fetching with his Verdant Catacombs to get a forest. And so Cameron gets all his dead zombies back. After all the zombies enter, everything will get -5/-5, then he'll get his zombie army, and everything will get -6/-6. And you better believe me when I say this dead is tenacious, because Shelby pays 2 mana to return it to the battlefield tapped. And then Cameron will also pay 2 mana, but to cast his commander again. And when he does, Shelby's tenacious dead will die. And after all of this, Cameron will move to his end step, sacrifice his zombie army to make a decayed zombie, and draw a card. The turn is then Chandler's, who plays a Ramanop Ruins as his land for turn. He'll then recast Zurzoth for 7 mana, and when it ETBs, everyone will take 3 damage to impact tremors. He'll then re-equip Zurzoth with the boots, and then attempt to activate Miko Koro. Cam will respond by sacrificing 2 zombies and Carrion Feeder to itself. When he does, Wilhelt will trigger 3 times to make 3 decayed zombies. When this happens, Noxious Ghoul will give all non-zombies -3/-3, and Zurzoth will die.
And Chandler accidentally puts his commander in the graveyard when he meant to put it back in the command zone.
Miko Koro will resolve, and then the turn will be passed to Shelby. And Shelby will play a command tower.
And then drop a Skithrix, the Blight Dragon, and give it haste, and then swing for 4 Infect at Cameron. After that, Shelby will pass the turn to Dustin. And Dustin will start his turn off by shocking at a Stomping Ground, and then recasting Tovolar. And he'll scry 1 to the bottom with Path of Ancestry. He'll then pay 4 mana to equip Tovolar with both the Commander's Plate and the Swiftfoot Boots. Dustin then moves to combat and turns his commander sideways, but he doesn't say at who. He ultimately decides that Cameron is his target, and Cameron can't block, so he'll take 7 commander. Dustin draws his card off combat and then passes the turn to Cameron. Cameron starts off with a War Room as land for turn, and then free casts a Vizier of the Scorpion, giving all non-zombies -1/-1, and then after it amasses, giving everything -2. He'll then cast a Mind Stone and immediately sacrifice it to draw a card. Then he'll equip his Wand of Orcus to one of his 2/2 decayed zombies, and then move to combat. He'll swing 6 damage at Chandler, and then 2 at Dustin. When damage goes through, Cameron will make 2 2/2 zombies, and then after combat, all of his decayed ones will die. And when his 2 other zombie tokens come in, Noxious Ghoul will give everything else an extra -2/-2, and Skithrix will die. Cameron, pretty sure he's going to die on this next turn cycle, decides to just go ahead and activate his War Room to lose 2 life and draw a card. He'll then move to his end step and sacrifice a zombie army to draw a card and make a decayed zombie. The turn is then passed to Chandler, and Chandler will start off with a mountain. He'll then cast a Glint-Horned Buccaneer, which when it enters the battlefield, all his opponents will take 3 damage. And while it already has haste, he decides Shroud is pretty good too, so he equips the Greaves. He'll then move to combat and swing for what will be 6 at Dustin thanks to Fiery Emancipation. And before damage, Chandler pays 2 to discard an Anger and draw a card. When he discards, Glinthorn deals 3 damage to each of his opponents. He'll then activate it 1 more time to discard a Heraldic Banner, draw a card, and deal 3 more. Unfortunately, this is enough to kill Cameron. Damage will then go through, and Chandler will then pass the turn to Shelby. And Shelby will start off with a Temple of Malady. He'll then follow it up with a Dimir House Guard, and then follow that up with a Defense of the Heart, one of my personal favorite cards. Shelby will then pass the turn to Dustin, who is now pretty determined to kill Chandler. And Dustin will start off with an Immerwolf. After that, with 1 mana left open, Dustin casts a Portraiser. Chandler, seeing that this is the death of him, decides that it's best to Tybalt's Trickery this. Dustin rolls and has to mill 3 cards. After milling, he flips and casts a Cult of the Waxing Moon. After this, Dustin will equip his Immerwolf with Swiftfoot Boots, then move to combat and swing for 11 at Chandler. When damage goes through, Dustin will draw 2, and with nothing left to do, he'll pass the turn to Chandler. Chandler will move to combat and swing with Glinthorn Buccaneer at Shelby. He'll discard a card to draw a card, and everyone will take 3. He'll repeat this process 4 more times until everybody is dead. And so after a pretty swingy game, Chandler is the winner of the Halloween special. Welcome to the end of the video, everyone. As usual, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate all your support. We couldn't do it without you guys. Let us know what you think about themed videos like this one down in the comments below. And while you're down there, if you're curious about our deck lists, they'll be in the description along with our social media links. We all hope you have an excellent Halloween this year. Stay safe out there, guys, and have a smooth day.